because we're glad you're here at Plainfield Christian Church's Reunion Campus as we continue to study in this book of Ecclesiastes. It's been a great study. It's probably one of my favorite throughout my journey of faith as far as teaching when I was a youth minister, as well as just processing through and evaluating life. It looks at every aspect of our living. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes 4 a little bit later, verses 4 through 12. So if you want to go ahead and open your Bible, you can be ahead of me there and be working there. Solomon, he was a worker. He was consumed by work, and he evaluated everything by work. And so we're going to take the section of Scripture when he really talks about how we deal with work in our life and what role it plays, the good, bad, and ugly, per se. There's a word in Japanese that I'm going to have to actually look this up to make sure I probably won't pronounce it correctly, but karoshi is the word. It's a Japanese word that was developed actually in the 80s and 90s, karoshi, and it's a word that basically means death by overwork. Believe it or not, in Japan, 30,000 people a year die from overworking. It's a condition that has come across on that island, that they work so many hours, work so much, that they basically will find people dead at their workstation or whatever. They consider it overworking. So much so that actually the government, in order to care for the widows who have died from this, have actually set aside financial funds to take care of widows whose husbands who had worked so hard that they basically worked themselves into the grave at a young age. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? What a condition. And yet, we may call it crazy, but it kind of sounds familiar too, doesn't it? We don't know if actually someone's dying here in the States from that. We may call it heart attacks. We may call it other things. But more than likely, all of us have a work ethic, or you have a work ethic that is a high-level work. It's something that we just work hard. We work hard. We pride ourselves in how hard we work. And I think Solomon in this opportunity in this text makes us ask this question: why? What drives me to work so much? What drives me to do what I do at work? What's my motivation? What builds me? Why do I spend so many hours at this and extra hours? And when the boss asks for more, I give more. And there's a lot of answers to that. There's a wide variety, I think, of answers to that why. We want to say we're just serving and want to honor the Lord, but I think that if we're honest, we'd say probably because a little bit of our own pride, our own identity, our own work ethic is driven to that. But there's also a sense of accomplishment, a sense of title, a sense of I want to move up. And if I work hard at this stage, I'll be able to get to this stage. And if I get to this stage, I'm going to get to that stage. And there's this progression. If I work harder, it's going to pay off. That's our big deal, the payoff. We may even use that term, but we never define what the payoff is, do we? We want to think the payoff's money, because that's what we were, that's probably in our mind when we use the word payoff. It's a financial term. So we're thinking, I'm doing this to gain more for myself, to gain more for my family, so we can get bigger, so we can have more, so we can have that nicer house, so I can redo the bathroom. And your list and my list is long of what we want to do with our money, right? We want to go to places. We want to retire one of these days. We want to do this and do that. In order to do that, I find myself we can be driven. Well, as we study Ecclesiastes, and again, looking at Ecclesiastes 4 through 12, and we'll jump into this, it forces us to look at our life. It's going to force you in the weeks to come and in the months to come. It's going to force us, and I hope it already has forced you to go, I have some choices to make with my life. And as I look at these texts, and I look at what Solomon is wrestling with, and that I join him in this wrestle, it forces me to not just look at my journey in my life, but it also forces me to decide whether I'm going to make choices that change or not. Because there's a lot of times we're confronted by things in Scriptures, but we walk away from them. Scriptures are called a mirror, and a mirror is a great thing, but a mirror really tells you, or a mirror gives you an opportunity to change something. It's up to us whether we change it or not. I don't know if you've ever thought about that. You've ever gone to the mirror and gone, I got something hanging from my tooth, and my hair doesn't look very good at all. I got a little dirt on my face. I'm ready to go, right? We don't do that. We look in the mirror because we're looking to make sure there's whatever's in my teeth, I can get out. Whatever my hair is, I can put it to where I want it and get. But you know what I'm saying? That's what it is. It's to give us opportunity to change from where we are. God's word is the exact same thing. It's this opportunity to change from where we are. And if we're just walking through this book of Ecclesiastes from morning to Sunday morning, going, I heard that was great, and now I'm out of here, then don't, because this is really about choice. This is really about how I choose the journey in faith with Christ and allow him to confront me where I need to be confronted and to begin making a choice that moves me in his direction. Because we have a choice when we're confronted to move away from his direction as well. And that's the struggle that we have. So here's the choices. We're going to kind of read this not collectively all in one shot. I'm going to kind of break it up. But it has this choice that he gives us of a balanced life over a life of achievement. Well, we want titles. We want those types of things. But there is this sense of choosing, a sense of how can I be balanced? I want to choose to be balanced. I think all of us would agree with that. It's like a default. Well, of course we would choose to be balanced. However, I would say if we took a poll right now about majority of our lives, we would probably lean to not being balanced in life. That's just my assumption this morning. We would lean towards the idea that I'm not balanced in my life. Things aren't where they should be. The values are a little skewed right now. My time is spent this way and that way. And he writes it this way. He actually describes three different people in verses 4, 5, and 6. The first one is this. I've seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after wind. This is description of a person that's basically is trying to build their own kingdom. It's my kingdom. It's something that is rivalry that occurs between people. There's competition. Let's be honest. There is competition with us in our life. We want to do things better than someone else. We always want to assume we do something better than someone else. How many of you, when you're in school, if you're still in school, was the person who asked other people what they got on their tests? Okay, be proud of that. Come on, raise the hand. Augie, did your hand go up there? Yeah, I'm going to pick on Augie. Why, Augie? Why did you want to know what they got? Be honest. Come on. You wanted to beat? That's right. You wanted. It's the coach in you, right? It's like I wanted to know if I did better, right? I want to know that I score higher than they do. That's why you ask. You probe for those types of things. I mean, even those who are not athletic and don't feel like you have a competitive bone in your body, you're competitive. You know, you have that in you. I have it in me, even in the grocery line. The grocery line competition. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? How many of you play it? Raise your hand. Yeah, right? You evaluate as you're pushing the cart. Shorter, longer, same. Which one do you go in? You go in this one or that one, and you look, and you're like, that's the person I would have been behind, and let's see if I beat him, right? That's what you do. Maybe not all of you. I do it occasionally. You know, it's just a part of our nature. It is a part of our driving. It is this sense that there's almost an envy in us. 9 out of 10 people, the researchers showed, in the workplace actually have what's called professional envy, in the sense that at any moment they really feel like someone else is getting more attention than they are, maybe better salary, better job than they have, that they would actually do better than that person who's actually doing that job, and I envy their pay, and I envy what they do, and it comes out in conversations as you talk about each other and about other employees and their work and not their work, and it comes out in just how you share things. A lot of the coffee talk that people do in the workplace is a lot of times, think about it, listen to the conversation. Is it more about the goodness of people or how bad people are doing what they're doing? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why is that? This is exactly what Solomon's saying. It's all this positioning and power and this, I want this and they shouldn't have this and I can't believe the boss did that. My boss does nothing. I do everything. Have you ever heard that one before? So you can just, you just simply get this desire in our heart that gravitates and pulls us, this sin nature and our ego that needs to be fed. And if somebody goes, well, I don't know if I really have. How many of you have been to your high school reunion? Raise it. Okay, pretty good number. How many of you never have been to your high school reunion? I can tell you well, I don't know if this is for sure, but if you've been to the high school reunion, isn't it crazy, the mental game you play leading up to it? I've never been, but I played it out. It's like, I wonder what so-and-so looks like now. I bet you they're not doing as well as we're doing. I bet you, all those things you kind of think are kind of a stereotypical maybe story or movie that's been written. In reality, it's come out of the humanity of our heart. It's because we have this desire to be the best. We have desire to do whatever it takes to work in order that we get this recognition, that we be able to have these egos that get fed, and I want to impress. And Solomon says that life, it's empty, it's chasing, it's never gaining, it's pretending, actually. It's a great world of pretend. And that's something we have to work against. That I work so much really for the purpose of impressing and not maybe for the purpose of either working or even for the purpose of accomplishing what God may have me to do in that workplace that may be even bigger than my job description. Because I do believe that he calls us to have a good work ethic. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Because the next person he talks about in this one little line is is on the other spectrum of this person or these people that work in competition. This person has an attitude. This person is someone who sits there and he says that the fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. Solomon is actually kind of joking. There's sarcasm here in this hyperbole. He actually mocks the sense of this lazy person. This is what he's talking about. It's someone who just sits there and folds their hands and does nothing. And then they eventually just consume themselves. It's a person with a consuming mentality. I don't have to work for anything. I deserve certain things. I deserve to have that. I'm just going to sit here in a little corner and I will demand other people to give it to me, to hand it to me. And Solomon says, I don't know how they eat. They must end up eating their own flesh. There's this consuming laziness that's about them. It's this foolishness, this word fool. It's interesting because we would define it in our American culture as someone that's a buffoon or an idiot. But actually, in the biblical times, this word fool was actually a spiritual stance towards God. It actually was someone who had a stubborn heart towards God himself. It was someone that would fold their arms and say that your truths are I ignore. Eternity, I ignore. I laugh in wisdom. I just don't need you, God, and I have a heart that denies God itself. It is a theological stance towards God. A fool is one who understands God and basically goes, no, thank you, I'm going to do my own thing, and folds his arm and lives his own life. And he said there's this sense here that there is a consumer mentality when it comes to someone who's just as lazy, and they don't raise crops. They have to borrow someone else's crops. They have to be fed by other people. And he says this is a condemnation. This is a silly thing. This consumer mentality that they have here. Paul, that's why God gives us this through scriptures, the importance of a work ethic. We are called to work. He writes to the Thessalonians these words, if anyone will not work, neither let him eat. That was Paul's stance. You know, if you don't work, you don't eat. It's all the way there is to it. And that was what scriptures teach us. In Colossians, Paul again writes to them, to the Christians there, whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than for men. There's a different concept. I'm not actually working for my boss. I'm actually working for the Lord. Whatever workplace it is, whatever you do, whatever the check is, it's really God going, listen, you work for me, and I have a higher expectation. Believe me, if you think your boss has a high expectation, just take this into consideration. The Lord's expectation of you in the workplace is one that calls us to this, and we not to be lazy. And there are some work environments that are lazy. That people don't work hard. They don't work intentionally. They only work when they're being watched instead of actually working with their whole heart. And I'm going to talk right now a little bit and transfer this concept out of the workplace into just discipleship. I was thinking that in my own mind, this verse, the fool's whose hands and consumes his own flesh. In other words, this sense that I'm just a consumer. That it's easy in our world because we are consumers. Our culture is a consumer culture. I want to buy, I want to get, I want to have, I go out and get it when I want it, I go out and eat. Everything is a consume. I want what I want, when I want it, how I want it. And that's, believe it or not, that is how we think. And the scary part is, for those that are Christians, I'm talking to you that are Christians right now, is this sense, is that describe you as a Christian? I consume. I come, I sit, I consume. I evaluate church. Is it good for me? Does it meet my needs? Because I think that we can go into a worship environment, we can hear preaching, and it's like, that was good, I appreciated that, I sat down, I come, and I go, and all I do is I consume. I don't serve, I don't even think about God using me outside of this context. I don't think about being a part of what needs to be done as part of the body itself, and I can have this attitude that basically allows me just simply to come and to consume and not join in actually what God wants us to do. And I think that we have to realize that God has called us. He's gifted you. He's gifted you. in a way that you have something to give to the body on every level. And I plead leadership. We want you to investigate. I want you to grow in that. I want you to engage in that, because we need people to begin not only consuming but begin producing and pulling out of their life this life of discipleship. It's a life that produces an honor and glory for the Lord. It's a healthy disciple, and that's what we want to be. I think if we're honest, I want to be a healthy disciple. And part of it is consuming and being fed, but part of it is serving. Part of it is giving. Part of it is sacrificing. Part of it is all that journey of what a disciple is to be. And so Solomon basically then takes the third person and said, let's find the middle somewhere. So not lazy on one end, but not so crazy working on the other end. Where's the middle? And he talks about it here, and he just talks about seeking a godly balance. And he describes it this way. In this third proverb, he actually writes 3 proverbs here, and verse 6 is the third. One handful of rest is better than 2 fists full of labor and striving after wind. If you look at that, it's like, what in the world? Holding, handy, what? Basically, he's saying this. We can live through life, and we can work, and when we work with like arms full. I've got this, and I've got that. I've often thought about, I've always wanted to buy land. Anybody in that same boat with me at some point? Like land. I want to buy land. I want more. I got a small yard. I got a yard, but I'm in the suburbs, and I want land and a pond. It was about 3 or 4 years ago that when the real estate market dropped, properties dropped as well. And we found a property, 50 acres, about 45 minutes out of here. It had a 5-acre lake on it, had a house already built on it, timber everywhere. It was beautiful, for the price was crazy. And I thought, man, we could go into debt more, and I could mow more, and I'd have to buy lawn stuff, and I'd have to get this stuff, and I'd have to take care of that, and then I'd want a boat, because now if you got a 5-acre lake, what do you have to have, man, right? You have to have a boat to go on there, because you need to have a boat. And so I'm thinking about my life in ministry with these 50 acres 45 minutes away from where I live, in my community. And it was a good thing Beth and good wisdom went, you're crazy. This doesn't make sense, because what you'll be living for is the 50 acres. My life is, now there's nothing wrong with owning 50, I own 50 acres of shame. No. I'm just saying, in my journey, I realized that what that would be, as much as my heart desired that, what was going to occur is it was going to throw my life out of balance even more. Because my time, my attention, my heart, and everything was going to draw me away from the essential thing that I believe that God is calling not only me, but all of us to do. And we got to be very wise in life as we walk through that journey. And he talks about this, that I can either fill both hands up, or I can basically live in a way that says I can work hard with one hand and keep one free, that allows me to keep balanced. That I can be whimsical. Margin is what I consider the other hand. Living in margin. Now, I don't know. I know it's hard with young families and so many kids, but the margin in most probably people's lives occur between 9 o'clock at night and 6 in the morning. There's no margin for anything else. If something happens, like something that's really bad, it's like it throws everything up. It's like, how do we do this? We don't have margin for this. If someone gets sick, you don't have margin even to get sick. It's because we have 2 hands full. We schedule our life so complete that we don't even have margin for even ministry. Do I even have margin to let somebody in my life? Do I have margin to actually go into someone else and invest in another family's life or a neighbor's life? Do I even have margin for those things? Or have I filled both hands up? And this balance is what he calls us to, is that when we realize that there are certain things that have a higher value, we make hard choices. And this is where it comes down to hard choice. Balance comes by your choice, no one else's. Adam LaRoche. Everybody know who Adam LaRoche is? Anybody? Christian Arvin would know who Adam LaRoche is. You'll know him when I tell you what he did. He walked away from $13 million. Do you know who he is now? No? Played, past tense, for the White Sox. Played for the White Sox up to a month ago. A veteran player. Clubhouse told him, actually the president, twice in about 2 weeks, that his son, who had basically almost grown up in the clubhouse, that listen, that just needs to diminish and just kind of stop. He's 14 years of age now. He'd actually been in the clubhouse for many, many years. And Adam LaRoche basically wrote a note and said, "Thank you very much. I've enjoyed my time of playing with you. I am done." And he walked away from $13 million in order to basically say, that's going to throw my life and my son out of balance. And this has been healthy. And he made a choice. Now, some of us may argue, like, are you kidding me? Well, of course he can walk away because he's made millions of dollars ahead. I agree with that, but every time you stop and think about it, yeah, but he walked away from 13 mil, guaranteed money. That's a hard choice. But he understood in his own mind that there was a value that was more important than having both of his hands filled, and it's an important choice we make. There's this balance. I love tops. You know what I'm talking about when you're a kid? I know you don't. Even kids, if they're, like, top, what's a top? It's like, do you wear a top? I'm like, no. It's the thing that you spin, and it's like one thing. It's just really cool when you get that thing just spinning, and it's just, but the interesting thing that a top only works because it has one point of contact. You've never seen a top that has 2 points. Because if you do, well, it doesn't work for one, and it throws everything out of balance. The only way a top can balance on such a small point is because all of its energy is focused in that one point. And that one point then brings balance to the whole. Do you get the picture? In order for us to really strive to have this balance that we need between work and life and all these things, and they all can be good, is that if we allow God to be the center focus that gives us the point of contact to life, and go, God, it is upon your life that you give us this opportunity to put it all together and make sense out of it. I need to know what to say no to. I need to know what to say yes to. Father, give me the wisdom to do that, not only for me, but for my family. It's important. We need to grow in that. We have a choice in that. We have a choice in that. And those are the three types of people he uses in this verse. But he goes on. He begins to talk about not only this relationship, there's this choice of relationship over riches. And it's kind of been there already, but he moves even further on in verses 7 through 12. I'm going to read verses 7 and 8 for you right now. It says, "Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business," he says. This isn't a person who's single. This isn't a person who just hasn't found that special person in their life. This is a person who has people in their life, but basically has made a choice to be isolated, has made a choice. They've worked so hard that they end up with no relationship at all. They have a business. The business becomes their bride. Their work becomes the mistress. And everything else is lived in isolation and alone. And relationships fade away. Husbands and wives, they work for each other. And I've heard this. Like, man, I work hard for my family, but she's never happy. And it's hard for someone in that situation to understand that what our spouses, both sides of that, you don't get married to live isolated lives. You just don't do it. It's not in your mind. It's not in your intention whatsoever. But when we allow work to simply say, I live my life, you live your life, we come together and say hello for a few hours, we get the kids, and we have to stop and go, what are we doing? How is this valued in us? And are we ending up being alone? I think there's married people who are just alone. People, they go to work and they're alone. I think that their marriage is alone. It's because what we've done is we replace these things, not with the value of relationship, but with the value I keep doing this so that we can keep buying and we can keep having and we can get more and I can have, you understand the picture. And yet I think Solomon then begins to disclose an important part of life. It's a part that's really counterculture to us, even though we have such things as Facebook. We have lots of friends in Facebook. We have this sense of relationship that are real or not real. They do draw us together in some areas, but real friendships are harder and harder to develop in our culture today. Have you noticed? Deep friendships. The cultures around the world look at us as Americans and they see us as pretty shallow people. because we really we don't have in-depth relationships with anybody. We don't let anybody in. Our pace is so quick. We have learned to keep people at bay and pretend as if we have good friendships. But Solomon goes into this great section of what the value is of relationship and friendship. And he begins listing them here. And it's nothing new. I think when we look at scriptures, it shows that God in his own heart and his intention always was pointing to the more, never to the individual. Adam needed Eve. It's not good that you're alone. Noah on the ark, 2 by 2. Never, send one giraffe in and one. No, it's 2, always 2. We see that. Even when we think through scriptures and God reveals himself in the Trinity, God lives as one, but 3 in 1. He's relational. And he's designed us to be relational and in need of that. Jesus, even sending out in the New Testament, his disciples, sending out to 72, sending out to 12, he didn't send them out 1 by 1, he sent them out 2 by 2. Because he knows there's a benefit in more than just one. And Solomon does the same thing. Friends accomplish more. Solomon writes in verse 9, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return on for their labor. We can get a whole lot more done. Who's on the setup crew in here? Who is on the setup crew? Raise those hands up. I can guarantee you, one of you, let's just say one of you had to set up every Sunday morning. Just one of you. How many of you would volunteer? No, you're backing out, aren't you, Trent? It's like there's no way. Yeah. 2, it's been good. 3, 4, 5, 6, you add the number, you increase the number, and all of a sudden the load is light, and all of a sudden you get a whole lot more done than what you used to get done. And now it's a joy because it's not just, I'm all by myself in doing this. I can accomplish more together. And I think this is important for us to realize even in the church. We combine our strengths. We combine our creativity. We join together. We can reach this community. Let me tell you this. We cannot reach this community if only one person is trying to reach the community. You can't reach the community even if 2 people or 3 people. It requires all of us to join together in order to accomplish that. We get more accomplished together than what we do by ourselves. But not only that, but friends support one another. We get the sense of being encouraged. That's why it's so good to be together. We encourage one another. Solomon continues and writes, if either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls down and has no one to help them. It is this sense that when I struggle, when I fall down, when I sin, it is good to have someone or discouraged to go, listen, come on, you can do this. God's grace is sufficient. We can do this together. We can accomplish this together. Don't drop out of the race now. Don't stop believing. Don't stop moving forward. Don't stop walking in this journey. Don't get discouraged in working together, even to reach a friend that doesn't know Jesus Christ yet. Work together to do that. Ask God to bring other people in their life. We can accomplish more. We can support more. And this, friends, keep each other alive and strengthen one another, because this verses 11 and 12, the last 2 simply say this. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And I simply say this, friends keep each other alive spiritually. We can't do this Christian walk on our own. We can't do it in isolation. We can't do it by simply sitting and being still. This world will devour us and take us out. I've had the privilege of being in the continent of Africa and actually seeing the elephants and the gazelles, and it's interesting to watch them and their behavior because they are constant on the look. They are constantly watching out for danger. They are constantly on alert. There's always, and that's why they have the herd mentality, because there are a lot of eyes looking around at all times knowing that there's danger, that something's going to happen. They are fully aware at any moment. As a matter of fact, had a mama elephant that she was getting ready to cross the road with her 2 little ones, and we were there in the vehicle, and she came right across, stopped, looked, and she flared her ears out and gave that like, hey, my kids are going to cross the road about right now, and I suggest you stay right where you're at. So we did. We stayed right where we're at. But that's exactly what she was warning us. She was like, listen, I know you're there. I know that I have 2 I'm ready to protect, and I will protect them with my life if you do anything. And I think that's an important part of our Christian brothers and sisters. I'm going to guard you. I want to love you. I want to help you. I want to protect you, because the evil one on our own will destroy and will take us down. And that's why I want to encourage you. I ask you, please, that part of being a part of a church is a part of being integrated into life groups and studying scriptures together, of encouraging one another. If you're not in that, then you're still walking in isolation and discipleship. And God goes, I call you to live in community, to worship in community, to walk in community, because you need each other. And so I encourage you, please talk to me, talk to someone else. There's sheets on the back table. I'm interested in a life group. I want to get in. We will plug you in. We will get you started, because it's vital. We need each other. So this journey that Solomon has us on, this introspect, talks to us about going to the next level. Do I stay where I'm at, or do I move? So what's the next level? If you're not a believer, the next level is basically for you to go, how can I begin my journey in faith with Christ? I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Maybe you're here today, and maybe you have seen yourself as a consumer. And you're like, I've just kind of consumed. I've never engaged more than just coming to church, giving offering, doing a little praying here, but I've never engaged in actually the ministry in the community. I've never actually thought about reaching or sharing Christ with my neighbor. I never have actually thought about what is my next step in ministry and life that God wants to use me for. And maybe today that you're here and you're like, I've never thought of that before, and I'm going to say today, start processing that, asking God to reveal to you what those next steps would be in your journey of discipleship. And maybe it's for you, it's just this next step of a life group. You've not been in a life group, and maybe that's a decision you need to make. I encourage you to make those this morning, because God wants us to be on the move and not stagnant. And so let's be a people. Let's be his body that is moving and alive in order to bring him glory. Let's this week, maybe your choice is to say, it's time to cut some things out in order that I can create balance. Let's pray.